Rise with India podcast on ET Now.
Good morning and happy Monday to you. This is the daily morning update from ET Now and I'm Alex Matthew. Here's everything that you need to know at the start of your day. Today is the 21st of June. An update on the Covid-19 numbers, and I'm starting with this for a change. India's active Covid-19 cases dropped to 7.6 lakh, the lowest in 75 days. That's according to the Health Ministry's update on Sunday. 58,419 people tested positive for the virus in the 24 hours to 8 a.m. on Sunday, and that's the lowest number in at least 80 days. But while we seem to have gotten over the worst of the second wave of the pandemic, authorities are stressing the need to be vigilant to prevent the third wave. To that end, it will be heartening to know that the pace of vaccine administration has increased rapidly in June. India administered over 5.3 crore doses in the first 18 days of June, according to the government's CoWin dashboard. That's already close to the 5.53 crore number that was administered in May. The daily average vaccination number has risen to 29.6 lakh in June, compared with 17.8 lakh in May. Over the weekend, Chief Economic Advisor KV Subramanian has said that the government is open to announcing more measures to boost the economy. But he added that the demand for a fresh stimulus package has to be considered against the backdrop of a host of initiatives taken by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget for the current financial year. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has said that China will risk international isolation if it fails to allow a real investigation on its territory into the origins of the virus that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Sullivan's comments follow last week's call by a group of 7 leaders, including US President Joe Biden, for another probe into how the virus originated. In other major international news, this will have a huge bearing on oil prices going forward. World powers and Iran failed after a 6th round of negotiations in Vienna to revive a nuclear deal that would lift US sanctions in exchange for Iran scaling back atomic activities. A day after hardline cleric Ibrahim Raisi was declared the winner of Iran's presidential election, diplomats adjourned their 6th round of meetings with significant gaps remaining to mend the 6-year-old agreement. The president-elect is himself subject to sanctions imposed by the Trump administration in 2019. Iran said one of the serious issues raised in the latest round of talks to revive the 2015 nuclear deal was the need for a guarantee from the US that it won't exit the accord and reimpose sanctions again in the future. In corporate news back home, the Debt Recovery Tribunal at Bengaluru has permitted the sale of shares pledged to lenders of the now defunct Kingfisher Airlines in a bid to recover loans. The tribunal, according to a sale proclamation published on its website, has allowed the sale of 3.96 crore shares of United Breweries, 25 lakh shares of United Spirits, and 22 lakh shares of McDowell Holdings Limited. In the telecom space, Reliance Jio added 7.3 million active subscribers in March, by far the highest in the industry after 2 straight months of decline. Bharti Airtel added active users for the 8th straight month, remaining the largest operator by active users. It added 4.8 million subscribers in March against the 6-month average of 4.5 million. Vodafone Idea, meanwhile, lost 0.4 million against an average decline of 1.4 million over the last 6 months. And with that, it's over to Rohit Singh for the trade setup for the day in India. Morning, Rohit. How are we looking today?
Good morning, Alex. There was a smart pullback from the lows on Friday, and that underscored the pulse of the market. But it still wasn't enough to arrest the slump last week. We ended 4 weeks of up move, and that raises the red flag that we aren't on safe grounds. Still susceptible to a correction, even after 3 days of fall. The fear gauge is still below the 15 levels, supporting the bullish voices in the market. But the breadth of the market says sellers are not out of the game totally. What makes this setup shaky is that US stocks were hammered by sellers on jitters over Fed's taper trajectory. Dow bled by over 500 points to clock its worst week since October. But back home, The firepower was clear and emphatic, with both foreign and domestic investors lapping up shares on Friday. FIS bought up almost 2,700 crore rupees worth of shares, and DIS too were net buyers of shares worth 450 crore rupees. Let me now move on to some of the stocks you may find interesting. The 4,000 crore rupee Carlyle deal with PNB Housing could be in a regulatory fix. PNB Housing is likely to challenge a SEBI order asking for independent valuation before company sought shareholder approval. Street has mounted bullish bets on Reliance ahead of its AGM on Friday. There is hope that Reliance will share plans for retail and digital arms and an update on Aramco deal. Zydus Cadila is likely to seek emergency use authorization for its COVID vaccine this week. Infosys wants to achieve revenue growth of 12 to 14% and a margin of 22 to 24% this fiscal. CEO Salil Parekh said large deals at Infosys have risen to a record high of $14 billion in FY21. Surrey Equipment Finance has got a 2,200 crore rupee investment interest from a Singapore-based entity. As per news reports, a draft cabinet note has been floated for 100% FDI and oil PSUs which are approved for divestment. Jio has added most active phone users in March, bucking a trend of losing to Airtel for 3 straight months. HDFC is planning to sell 5% stake in HDFC Ergo to HDFC Bank at a price of 536 rupees per share. Alchem Labs' US plant has received a Form 483 and 2 observations from the US FDA. Another potential headline is that market regulator SEBI is considering a plan to let foreign portfolio investors trade commodity futures listed on local exchanges. To recap, the rush in the small caps has cooled off last week, a sign that bulls may now want to get selective on their stock bets. We wish you a profitable day ahead. Thank you for your time. Come back tomorrow for another episode of Headlines and Morning Market Summary. It's back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Rohit. And as always, thank you all for listening in. Have a lovely Monday, guys, and have an amazing week ahead.
The Rise with India podcast on ET Now.